Hello and welcome to Pedro's World. Today I install my new fork, and for this I talk about steer tubes, how to cut them and how to install the Starnut. For this you need a few things: a hammer, files, a saw, a Starnut setter, some grease, a saw guide, the fitting crown race for your fork, steer tubes comes extra long, so you can cut it down depending on your bike and your preference. The first thing to do is to measure your steer tube and decide where to cut it. There are two ways to do it. One method would be to just take your old fork and cut the new fork exactly the same length. And because this steer tube is actually a little bit short, I show you with the new fork the other method. For accurate measuring, I always put the crown race first on. For this, I need some grease. So then place the ring on the fork. To protect the fork, put a rag under the fork. And then I just take this tube, I just cut the tube. So it sits nicely on the fork. And because of the plastic tube, it doesn't have any scratches. If you do it with a screwdriver, be careful you don't hurt the surface. Just make sure the crown race is actually matching your headset. It normally comes with the new headset, but just in case, make sure it fits. With the crown race instead, insert the fork into the frame, putting your preferred amount of spaces on with your stem. Make sure everything sits in position properly, because sometimes the headset is not really perfectly together. Just tighten this a little bit so your whole fork doesn't fall down. And I put one spacer on top. Mark it with a metal thing, in this case a screwdriver. In case it's not a new fork, make sure you mark it very well, because sometimes there are other marks on the steer tube. And what I would also highly recommend, measure always twice, because as soon as you cut this one off, it's off and you can't fix it. You basically have to buy a new fork when it's too low. So measure always twice. Keep in mind to cut your steer tube 3 or 4 millimeters under your marking, so you're able to actually tighten your headset after. Now I dismount the fork again, and we're moving on to the cutting process. Now my fork is back on the workbench, demounted, and I just mark the place 3 to 4 millimeters under my other marking I just did. So it's actually the cut line. Now it's time to install the fork with the saw guide. As you can see, I have 2 lines. Make sure you take in this case, the lower one, because I wanted to have it 3 to 4 millimeters less. As you can see, my fork is now mounted in the saw guide. So because my steer tube is out of aluminium, I need a metal saw. In case you have a steer tube which is out of carbon, make sure you have a carbon blade and you don't clamp it too hard to not destroy the carbon steer tube. I would recommend take it easy, because it's not the race and you want to have a clean cut. To avoid having metal chips falling on your ceilings or the stanchions, just leave the fork in the saw guide, move it a little bit forward and file it there. So it's nicely cutted, nicely filed and ready to install the Starnut. Next step is to put the Starnut on the Starnut setter. For those who don't know this, it's a tool to help you to install the Starnut nicely and straight into your steer tube. So just place the Starnut tool on the fork, and because of demonstration I'm on the table, but normally I would prefer doing it on the floor. Make sure again you put a rack under your fork. So and now it's time to hammer the Starnut. Just hammer the Starnut about 1 centimeter under the steer tube. Now my Starnut is about 1 centimeter in my steer tube and my fork is ready to get installed. That was it from me today. My Starnut is in my fork and is actually ready to mount on my bike.